You were asking about conference, and it is right, wrong, or indifferent. I feel like that most people view BYU as maybe the best addition of all the 8 schools to this point, with what they've brought to the table, how good they've been, all those things, passion and nationwide audience, all that stuff. And down here, it appears that the perception is Utah doesn't really like being in this league, doesn't want to be in it. Is this accurate? Is this inaccurate? Take me through. And then there was the report a couple weeks ago about, they're maybe looking at the Big Ten, maybe looking at them for years from now and all that stuff. Anyway, take me through that dynamic, because I know Texas Tech is a proud member of the Big 12. They wanted to make this thing work. That's why, the BYUs and the Central Floridas and Cincinnati's and Houston was such a big deal, because it could survive. And now it's really healthy and sustainable.
Now, I speak as a guy who works in sports radio here in Salt Lake City, but I also host the BYU version of a podcast. So this is going to come off as a one-sided conversation, and I'm fully expecting Utah fans to clip.
But I asked you. I just want the perception or your opinion. Yes.
So, but as I understand it, is that Utah, in their heart of hearts, does aspire to be in the Big Ten. They'd like to rejoin USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, programs that they were proudly affiliated with in the Pac-12. If given the opportunity, they would jump ship and do it without in a heartbeat. They would just absolutely do it. The question is the Big Ten intent on expanding anytime soon? And if they do, is Utah on the short list? That is the question that remains in my mind, is how high or how low on that list of the wish list that Big Ten may have are the Utes? Could I easily see them being that bridge team, I guess is the best way to call it, to the West Coast, where you have teams already in the Eastern, Central, and Pacific time zones? Could Utah be that bridge program in the Mountain time zone for you? They sure could, but the question I have is, A, is the Big Ten interested in expanding soon? There's question marks there. B, how high on that wish list are the Utes actually? And then I guess the final thing on that front is Utah getting too ahead of themselves anticipating such a move?
Okay, so what I hear you saying, though, is they're really not thrilled with being in the Big 12 right now, and it's just kind of was a soft place to land, and it's just a holding pattern.
It was a soft place to land. There's zero doubt about that. They saw what was happening with the Pac-12. They didn't want to be Oregon State. They didn't want to be Washington State, and left up a creek without a paddle, because that's exactly what could have happened. I can tell you, Chris, there are BYU fans out there that would have loved to have seen Utah left out in the cold. I have no problem saying that, because I've talked with some of those fans. I also look at it as that Utah understands that the Big 12 was their best lifeboat, to use that expression, to stay relevant in the national scene when it comes to intercollegiate athletics. It's part of the Power Four. It's an opportunity for them. They anticipated coming in last year that they were going to be the best football team in the league, and the polls, the national pundits all kind of agreed with that. Well, they didn't have that happen. Now, a quarterback injury obviously derailed them, and the quarterback play in general just failed them miserably last year. And we'll see if they bounce back this week, because what you got clipped for is that, Texas Tech could thump Utah, vice versa. Utah could thump Texas Tech. All three of these programs we've been talking about today, BYU, Tech, and Utah, have played, in my opinion, exactly nobody.
I know, you're right. It's exactly right.
So we're still learning a lot about these teams, and I'm calling it a show me game on Saturday between Tech and Utah, because whoever comes out on top probably gets the pub as the favorite in the Big 12, because it's a really, really highly anticipated showdown. There's a reason why Big Noon Kickoff is in Salt Lake City. There's a reason why it's at 10 a.m. on Fox with Gus and Joel Klatt calling the game. It's because it's being hyped and anticipated that it could really separate the proverbial men from the boys when it comes to the Big 12 race.
And it's not lost on me that last September of 2024 that Utah was in a similar game like this with Oklahoma State in Stillwater, and I believe those teams were ranked in the top 15, both of them.
Yeah,
and everybody kind of was looking at it like, okay, here we go, because Utah had been picked to win the league. Oklahoma State was right there in some of the preseason, and they went on to win all of two Big 12 games combined. One of which was the win that took place in Stillwater. And so I don't disagree that this is a monster game and it kind of is a tone setter.
Yeah.
But also watched Arizona State walk into Lubbock, Texas last year, and Texas Tech and Arizona State's first conference game last year. And Tech won that game, and Arizona State went on to go to Arlington, and Texas Tech did not.
Yeah.
So we're in for a wild, long season with injuries and upsets and all the things. But Tell me I'm told that the stadium environment will be scary and intimidating and all the things. And when I said what I said, it was almost me taking up for the league because there's a lot of tough places to play in this league. And Texas Tech has played in front of 100,000 in Austin, Texas, and in front of 85,000 in Norman, Oklahoma recently, and all the things. And BYU is an incredibly tough place to play. So is Ames, so is Manhattan, so is Morgantown, and on it goes. And so I just was curious your perspective of Rice-Eccles and the atmosphere there.
Rice-Eccles is an elite atmosphere to play in. I've got no problem saying that. I've attended games as a fan, as a media member, and I've experienced it at its absolute loudest, most raucous environments there are inside RES. But for Utah fans to think it's like the out-and-out best in the entire league seems a little contrived and a little, homerific, if that makes sense, is because the simple fact of life is you're right. LES, Lavelle Edwards Stadium, where BYU plays, is an elite environment to play in. I haven't experienced what Iowa State's got, but as I understand it, it's a crazy, crazy environment in itself. Manhattan with Kansas State looks absolutely crazy. I went to Lawrence, BYU's first ever Big 12 game. I traveled to Lawrence to go even to Kansas, and the fan base there at Kansas, I know that it's a basketball school, but it was a really, really good football environment, I thought. And I think with the new David Booth Memorial, the new look David Booth Memorial Stadium, it's going to be even better there. This is a league that I think has got a really, really nice home field advantage for the vast majority of the top tier teams. And yeah, Utah, they're proud about their home field environment, but I think there's 5, 6, 7, 8 teams out there that absolutely should have that same type of pride.
And I know that like when BYU was there last year, there was a nighttime kick. What will it be like at 10 a.m.?
That's kind of been the conversation. And I don't proclaim to be like absolutely in on every conversation on social media about Utah, but there have been Utah fans who were not happy about this being a 10 a.m. kickoff, complaining about, obviously it's going to interrupt with family time with kids having soccer games and the such on a Saturday morning / early afternoon. I get all of that. The question that I think has kind of come out of all of it is, how dedicated of a fan are you? You're going to be there for your team or not?
Gotcha.
But that exists, I think, across the board. It exists for BYU fans, exists for Texas Tech fans. We're at the mercy of these schedule makers and these TV broadcast partners. I had a BYU fan actually earlier this week. He said he was whining about the fact, he's like, Jake, all these games are night games for BYU. I'm like, you know what? You can whine about it all you want, but call ESPN and Fox and tell them that you're upset about it, and they're just going to laugh you off the line. We're at the mercy of these broadcasters, and they want top tier games like what Texas Tech and Utah appear it's going to be. And that's why it's at 10 a.m. local time. And it should be, I think it's still a good environment, but I will say, I think a daytime morning like environment is going to be far tamer than it would be, let's say at 7:30 at night.
Oh yeah. And that would be anywhere. I mean, I'd say the same thing about Lubbock, Texas, 10 out of 10 times. There's just no doubt. Okay. Let's talk about, because the two programs we cover will face off, I don't know, like 6 weeks from now, give or take.
Yeah, it's somewhere around that.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a question for you on that front.
Okay.
They just released new uniforms, the Patrick Mahomes edition. Is that what these are being called? Like, and why the Patrick Mahomes, first off, this connection that they've got? I know it's regarding Adidas and everything, but why the BYU game?
Well, and didn't BYU release like an all blue that they kind of set up that there was a post, here's what our uniform combos are going to be, and these are like all blues they're wearing. I think that I think it's November the 8th. I think is the actual
November 8th. When they play the game, correct?
Yeah, and I'll tell you the uniform. So when Mahomes had a big hand in like Adidas and Texas Tech coming together, they signed a 10-year agreement. It was very financially lucrative for Texas Tech, and they were trying to get away from Under Armour, and just felt like Under Armour was not any good anymore and doing their part, and they just wanted to try to do something different. So Mahomes got involved, and with that, he donated money personally to like the NIL fund, and then he's like, but I want to really have some hand in kind of some of what goes on here. And so last year they debuted it's called a galvanized uniform, and it's the same uniform you're seeing that's all white, but it was gray, darker gray with these mirrored numerals. Okay, and now this is the white version, or icy white, or whatever. Yeah. And so, because at some point, Texas Tech, I think they'll have an Adidas on their deal, but they'll also have like the Mahomes logo on their uniform. Like, it'll be like a permanent thing. So I don't know what all they've got going on, but it's like anything else. They're just trying to create buzz and all that. But why that game? I think it's because it's your biggest home game. I mean, I do. This is a bad home schedule for Texas Tech this year. Outside of BYU, I mean, Kansas may be your next best home game. Oklahoma State would have been in any other year, but I don't know what to make of the Cowboys, and I don't think that they'll be very difficult to beat, or not much buzz around that program like there used to be. Because all your road games, I mean, you got to go to obviously Salt Lake, you got to go to Tempe, Arizona, you got to go to Manhattan, Kansas, you got to go to Houston, and then Morgantown. So BYU is. So I think there's a lot being poured into that game in particular, and I think here's another connection. I think Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid will both be there.
That's what I was just thinking about, is the fact that Andy Reid's supposed to attend that game, and obviously him being a very proud BYU alumnus, obviously I think plays into a little bit, but it will be interesting. I know that Cougar fans are excited to get a chance to go to Lubbock and experience this. The thing about this is, there's going to be a perception, I think, even among Texas Tech fans, that, wow, there's a lot of people traveling from Utah for this BYU game. The crazy thing is, there's a lot of those folks who live in the greater Lubbock or West Texas region, or even from the Metroplex, who are just going to drive over. The thing about the BYU fan base, Chris, that I think Big 12 fans as a whole are learning very quickly about BYU is that there are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a lot of you know them as the Mormons, that are going to be out there that live in your general area and are going to show up to support their Cougars. You just may have not known that they were in your community.
No, I totally understand. I've seen. I was looking to make sure, but I think there's a Mormon temple here in Lubbock, Texas. Yeah, right on. I think it's on Frankfurt Avenue. I think, or just off of it, which is not too far from where I'm talking to you right now. But yeah, but yeah, that's why they're doing that uniform on that particular game. I think Pat could be there, I think, is the plan. And I think Coach Reid is supposed to be there too. So anyway, that should be a good one. And we'll see what either team is at that point. That feels like an eternity. Heck, basketball season will have started by then. I mean, your man AJ will have already debuted in Vegas, I think, if memory serves.
Correct. Yeah, they're playing Villanova.
Yes. So he will have already debuted by the time that these two football teams play. So that's how far off that is.
And that's the thing about this, is that this is a very highly anticipated year in general for BYU sports. Football obviously going now, but basketball is not too far behind it. And that adds to it. But I think it's the same thing down at Texas Tech with the amount of money. And we already talked about this earlier on the podcast, the amount of money these two programs or universities have been willing to throw around in NIL, revenue share, whatever method they've done to do it. They've got some high-level talent, and that lends itself, I think, to a highly anticipated clash when they finally get together. I just say this from my vantage point up here in Utah, is that you will have a lot, and I'm telling you a lot, because BYU doesn't play until 5:30 Mountain Time on Saturday against East Carolina. It's down there in Greenville, North Carolina. So there is plenty of time for Cougar fans to tune in, watch Big Noon Kickoff, watch Utah and Tech battle, and trust me, you're going to have a lot of Cougar fans tuned into that game just as much as any Utah or Tech fan, because they're interested to see what these two teams look like as they square off head-to-head.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and I'm just as curious as they are because I'll be right there to see it in person, and really not sure what to expect. We think we kind of know, but we really don't. I mean, to the point of the games last year and how the league race ended up rolling out. But yeah, both teams. Talking about BYU and Texas Tech, I think they could end up being contenders as we go, and you're just not sure what's going to happen between now and then. But it's the whole Holy War thing is wildly fascinating to all of us in the great state of Texas for sure.
Well, sure. And the thing about this, I'm going to give a credit to Josh Newman. He used to cover the Utes full time up here in Salt Lake City. He's now doing it on kind of like a part time basis, a contributor. But
Okay.
he had a really interesting post on social media. This kind of came yesterday, I think, if I recall correctly. It says this: the fun part about the Big 12 is that all these fan bases spend the week talking bleep and trying to dunk on each other, which is fun. It says there was not enough of that there was not nearly enough of that on a week to week basis in the Pac-12. And Josh has got a really good background on that because he covered Utah in the Pac-12 and the transition into the Big 12. He's not wrong about that. These fan bases, they love to get after it.
Yeah, and you know BYU for years, Texas Tech for years. You're trying to find your place. You're trying to fight for relevance. You're not sure what the future holds, what conference affiliation you're going to be in. Does somebody want me in a league? Does the league that I'm in gonna survive?
Sure.
And so we're all fighting for relevance. It doesn't matter what school you root for and all those things. And games like Saturday in Salt Lake, regardless of what Utah wants to do or may have the option to do or may not have the option to do, we don't know. It's good for the Big 12, and it's good because there's not that many games like this that grabs a hold of the I don't want to say the nation, but some of the countries like, hey, this one is meaningful. This game means something, and that's kind of what you lost when you lost some of the Texas and the Oklahomas, and so I'm here for it. I think it's great. I hope that it's a great game, and we'll kind of see what happens. But yeah, I'm with you because there's some passion in this league because that's what. What was it called? The truck stop conference by some. It was like the flyover conference by some. But there were times when everybody's looking around going, are we screwed? Are we about to end up in like the Mountain West? Is it over for us? And it's not. It's very healthy. It's sustainable. And games like Saturday, I would think would certainly help. But I know that Texas Tech and BYU will be rooting for the same team.
It sure feels that way. There's no doubt about that. And the thing about it is, I can tell you just the final thing real quick. BYU is really happy to be in the Big 12. We talked about Utah and maybe not necessarily being as happy, and they would be happy. They would probably be happier if they were in a different league. But I can tell you, BYU fought for years to be where they're at today, and who knows what the future holds. And BYU, I'm sure, will be in the mix, whatever happens next, whatever the next iteration of conference realignment looks like, because it feels like there's another one coming at some point. But for the time being, BYU fans, I think speaking for them as a whole, and I'm doing that for thousands of people, but they're happy to be part of the Big 12, and they've been really pleased, I think, with the reception across the league.
Yeah, I think they've been the best addition by far of anybody of the 8 new additions, and so I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
I think Arizona State, because of what they did in football last year, and then the playoff, certainly a 1A if BYU's a 1, but yeah, it's been great. And I saw you at the Marriott Center last year in basketball, 18,000 strong, awesome, because that's one of the very few arenas in the Big 12 that's bigger than Fog Allen, and it's bigger than United Supermarkets Arena where I broadcast games from, and it was legit, man, big time stuff. So yeah, kudos to the Cougs, and tell my man Cosmo, give my man Cosmo a shout out. Love the videos, love
Cosmo the Cougar, man.
Yes, he's legit, man. My daughter, who goes to Oklahoma State, ironically enough, she thinks that's the coolest thing ever, the whole Cosmo thing. So,
well, I got a whole story about Cosmo. I need to tell at some point about the intersection of Cosmo the Cougar, the Utah Jazz, and the late Larry H. Miller, who was the owner of the Utah Jazz. It was a story I'd never heard before, but it take a whole lot more time than we got on today's podcast. But it was a fascinating story when I heard it, and I need to tell it at some point, or have the person who told me it tell it at some point, it feels like. So, Chris, as always, it's good to catch up with you, my man. If BYU fans want to get more Texas Tech content and the like, where can they find you guys?
Yeah, Locked On Texas Tech, and my man Jake crushes it with Locked On Cougs, man. Locked On Cougars, I should say, and appreciate him. He was very gracious to host us today, and yeah, appreciate the time, and good luck against East Carolina this weekend.
It should be good. Well, as always, thank you everyone for tuning and making this your first listen of the day, and appreciate all of you for being with us. Want to encourage you guys, if you have not done so, subscribe to Locked On Texas Tech or Locked On Cougars, wherever you get your podcasts, also available on YouTube. And as always, come back tomorrow and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.